Imagine there's no countries.
My country 'tis of thee.
It isn't hard to do.
Sweet land of liberty.
Nothing to kill or die for.
Where my fathers died.
And no religion too.
Land of the Pilgrim's pride.
Imagine all the people
From every mountainside.
living life in peace.
Let freedom ring.
You may say I'm a dreamer,
America.
but I'm not the only one.
God shed his grace on thee.
I hope someday you'll join us.
With brotherhood from sea.
And the world will live as one. You may say I'm a dreamer,
For all the world.
but I'm not the only one.
Seeing God in every face.
I hope someday you'll join us.
One family.
And the world will live as one.
Thank you. Thank you. They like it. Thank you so much.
There is also an Independence Day holiday coming up. You may have heard about that as well. And I love this holiday. I am kind of I'm kind of a nerd in many ways, and there's a lot of things, but, I believe that this country that we live in is amazing and magnificent because of an ideal that it was founded on. And that is what I want to speak to today. Now, I am nerdy, so I have all these early American books on the founding fathers and the founding mothers, and this is how nerdy I am. I actually have copies of the Federalist Papers, so I get it. I'm nerdy. But it's really fascinating to me that this divine idea that we call the United States of America came out of what didn't work and a commitment to a new way of being, not based upon our old ways and our old patterns, which were based on royalty and lineage and that sort of thing, but based upon an idea of that we're all equal under the law. And so I go back and read the Declaration of Independence every year because it's an amazing, amazing document. I just want to take a moment, if I may. When it says, when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. This is radical stuff. By the consent of the governed, not by royalty, but by the consent of the governed. Now, I'm a realist. I recognize the fullness of our history, that we took over an inhabited land, that we're all illegal immigrants or descendants of said, unless we're of the native, of the indigenous people. I also recognize that the issue of slavery was not dealt with in the early founding, and it has been a sin that we have lived with through the ages. But I want you to hear this. So I don't think we're a perfect people. I don't think we're a perfect nation. But we are a nation that is created and founded on a vision and an ideal that we continue to evolve towards. So I get it. At the time of the Declaration of Independence, at the time of the writing of the Constitution, it was written by white men who were property owners. That was the rule, right? So even in this brilliant, expansive thinking, there was some limited thought. But you see, we put forth this idea that said all people are created equal. And as we began to live with that, we realized we've got some problems. That we can't have people owning other people. And so we fought an ugly and necessary war to free a group of people. As we continued on in our evolution towards this more perfect union, we realized, wow, women are people too. Took us guys a while to figure that out. You know how that is, but a little slow on the uptake. Maybe we should let them vote and drive. Maybe even we'll have a girl president someday. Who knows, right? Yeah. Okay. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Okay. Just last year, we decided that anybody can love whoever they love and marry them. Right? And so the progress continues to happen because the ideal was established. You see, so often I talk about this, we speak about this, that it is about the vision, it is about the ideal that carries us forward. It is not that we will have equality when everyone's equal, it's because we create an ideal and then we look around and go, wow, there's some pieces missing. There's some blind spots we have. You know, I look back at Paul, who wrote much of the New Testament, many of you know, and he was a product of his time, which means he wrote in the context of his time. So when he made reference to whether slaves should sit next to free people, it wasn't whether slavery was right. That was not the issue. He was dealing with life as it existed at that time. But we've gone back and said, well, Paul said, right? Now, I will tell you, I was going through when I worked at home office at the Centers for Spiritual Living, I was going through some archives at one point, and I found some dialogue with Ernest Holmes, founder of our denomination. Brilliant, insightful person we all study. And I want you to know, in some of his conversations, he used not politically correct language. It's true. But it was in the 40s and 50s. A lot of us didn't use politically correct language in the 40s and 50s. It didn't mean he was a bad person. But you see, we set for ourselves an ideal. And so we are a part of a grand experiment that's been going on for 240, 50 years now of, as Abraham Lincoln said, creating a more perfect union. We keep working to live out the ideal that we have set for ourselves. And it takes great courage to be free. Now, there's a difference between courage and bravery. But courage, interestingly, if you look at the root of the word, it means from the heart. And so when we're living in a state of courage, we're living from our heart. We're heart-centered. We're open. We're receptive to a greater possibility, to a greater reality. And what it demands of us is that we must be willing to confront that which doesn't work. When this nation was founded, it was by a bunch of rebellious people that had the audacity to say, we don't think it's right or proper to be taxed without representation. We don't think it's right that you impose a religion upon us. We don't think it's right that a lot of the things that have been done, that are done, are not the way we're going to live. And so we're going to create a nation based upon principles, and among those, that we have the right to govern ourselves. That's phenomenal. It's amazing. So we are not somehow specially gifted because we're Americans. But the ideal that lies behind America, I believe, is what has led to its greatness in the world. And we can't afford to forget it. We can't afford to forget our roots and where we came from. Now, again, I'm a realist. I know the fullness of our history, and not all of it is beautiful or lovely. We had a very messed up way of being, and it still exists, and it's called racism. But you know, some people came along and said, you know, this will not stand. And so Martin Luther King said to us, the ultimate measure of a person is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. You see, it's one thing to be big and bold when everything's wonderful, but who are you when it's not going well? What do you stand for? What will you stand for? And so Martin Luther King put his life on the line, but, and the big but, and why he's my hero, is because he did it in such a way that he said, I'm going to bring forth the Christian principles of nonviolence to effect change. And so we will lead a movement of people that says this cannot stand. And we will do it in nonviolent civil disobedience. He was inspired by the work of Mahatma Gandhi. And Gandhi did the same thing, using the principles of nonviolence to overthrow the great nation to create freedom. It's a remarkable thing when you think about it. What happens when we come together in love and take a stand for greater possibility? Another one of my great heroes is Nelson Mandela. And he's now regarded as one of this world's great statesmen, but he spent decades in prison for his stance against apartheid. Now, what is amazing to me is after all those years in prison, where he had every right and every possible justification to be an angry and bitter man, he came out of prison and led a nation into peaceful transformation. He didn't sweep it all under the rug. There was truth and reconciliation meetings, but he did it in such a way that love is what revealed itself, and the best of humanity came forth. He said, I have fought against white domination, and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve. But if need be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die. That compelling vision that these great men held for the best of who we are, that said we can live together, honoring and celebrating our differences, and be in harmony with one another. It is an ideal that is necessary today and will be tomorrow and will be for the rest of this great experiment. You see, it just keeps moving forward because we keep realizing that there are people that haven't fit in the original mold, and our job is to be inclusive and to let all people be part of this grand experiment. It's a fascinating time in which we live because we're also watching the shadow of that showing up. And so That's what always happens. The shadow always shows up to show us where we are unhealed. Have you noticed that in your own life? You say, I will be whole and perfect and complete, and your shadow shows up and goes, yeah, what are you going to do about this? Right? Yeah, what about your unhealed stuff, baby? What are you going to do about that? So it takes courage and it takes commitment to live in a state of freedom. And as we all know, the great freedom we have to find is not something outside of ourselves, but inside our own mind, our own way of being, our own way of thinking, of getting caught in our own opinions, as right as they are. Right? So we get stuck there. We get stuck in a worldview. We get stuck in a way of being. And then, when we're stuck there, we move into a war mentality. Because if I need to be right, you need to be wrong. And you don't want to be wrong. So now I'm going to have to beat the heck out of you until you'll admit it. And then I can be right. And nobody wins. So Jesus said to us, you know, this eye for an eye thing, not working out so great. It never really ends. He said, what I would say is we need to learn to forgive one another. And we should do that not once, but 7 times 70 times 7, every day of the week. So that's a whole lot. In other words, being in a state of forgiveness that recognizes that we are all inherently divine beings and we do stupid stuff. Can we get an amen? Okay. Let those in the room without doing stupid stuff now come forward, right? Because we all do stuff. Oh, the exalted one. Okay. There's always one. There's always one. Right? Because part of how we discover our divinity is by discovering our humanity. You know, I often joke about that some of the biggest mistakes I've made in my life seemed like such a great idea at the time. Brilliant. It didn't turn out so well. So we can either hold ourselves in punishment to that or hold others in punishment, or we can practice this spiritual thing that says we are all divine beings. Let us honor that, and let us also recognize that we will make mistakes along the way. So let us be together in such a way that we bring forth the best in one another. Now, I'm not saying let's condone all behavior. This is not what I'm saying, but let us not close our heart. I've been watching as I made this announcement, and I came to the world and I said, I'm going to retire. And you know, this is not an unusual thing for people of a certain age. Right? I know, but still, I'm just saying, much too young. And so in normal worlds, they say, okay, let's get you a cake and, thank you. And but in this community, or in all communities, I won't say, it's like, oh my God, you're changing the rules, right? And some of you have been around for a long time, so the ministers, they come, they go, some are good, some aren't, blah, 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 we move on. Some of you are new and you only know me as the minister, and you're like, who will we be without that dude? And I say unto you, you're going to be just fine, right? So what I watch and what I observe is that creates a dynamic that makes us uncomfortable. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, who are we going to be in the midst of the discomfort? Do we bring forth the best that is within us? Do we come together collectively and say, yay, Marty's taking his next step, let us celebrate, and we get to take our next step together and create a new reality, create a new possibility that will be fabulous and wonderful. Now, just so you know, you will not replace me. That is not the job. Because when, as Guy Finley says, when you realize no one else on this earth can be like you, that no other soul may know the beauty, sorrow, light, and darkness you alone are given to see, then you will at last be the fearless individual your heart of hearts has called you to be. I love that. You see, each of us has a unique purpose on the planet. And so I have a unique purpose on the planet. I bring forth what the divine wants to bring forth through me uniquely. You don't get another one of those. You can upgrade, right? And it'll be different. Oh well. But it will be good if we create a greater good for ourselves. You see, I've been very clear about this from day one, that this has never been about me. It's just my role here in helping to facilitate a community, and I've done that for 6.5 years here, and 25 freaking years for, you know, see all this gray hair? I tell you. And so for me, I'm blessed, I love you, I'm excited, and I'm ready to take my next step. And I'm ready for this community to take its next step. And someday we'll figure out whether the best thing I ever did was to come here or to leave here. We won't figure that out yet. So as I said, you know, there's those that only know the center with me, and they're like, oh my goodness, who will we be? And there's like, oh, I'm so sad. And then there's others that are like, how many more days? Right? 28 in case you're counting. But, right? It's just stuff. It's just life. So it becomes this huge opportunity for us to grow together. But with the courage to be free is the courage to be willing to look at ourselves and look at how we're showing up in the world, whether we're bringing forth that highest self or that lower self, whether we're living according to our own ideal or not yet reached it. You see, it's not about being perfect. It's just about moving forward towards the vision and the possibility. So Guy Finley says this brilliantly. He says, every saint, sage, and master, east or west, past or present, has a special message for you. You were born to be free. We were born to be free. Free of fear, free of stress, free of the past, free to be strong, wise, and perfectly unique. You are a once-in-a-lifetime experience for the divine, never to be repeated. So what are the odds of that? Currently like 1 in 7 billion. If you take all the people that have ever been, it's much higher. So you get, the special and unique thing. Now, before you get all like, ooh, look at me, I'm the most unique person on the planet, so is everyone else. So we should honor and love our uniqueness and our differences and our beauty. So here's some tips for having the courage to be free. First of all, the courage to be free comes from feeling fear, yet choosing to act. Feeling the fear and choosing to act anyways. Nelson Mandela said to us, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the willingness to act anyways. Secondly, to follow your heart. A number of years ago, Steve Jobs gave a speech, commencement speech at Stanford, and he said this, and most importantly, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. Now, you got to think, I just spent $100,000 on an education at Stanford, and now you're telling me all I need to know is my heart and intuition? You couldn't have saved me a couple of $100,000? No, I don't know. But it's true. If you follow your heart, There's a wisdom resident within each one of us that does guide and directs if we will but listen and act accordingly. And lastly, we have to let go of the familiar. You knew there was a catch. You knew there was a catch. We have to let go of the familiar. Robert Kennedy beautifully said this. He said, "This world demands the qualities of youth, not a time of life, but a state of mind, a temper of the will, a quality of the imagination, a predominance of courage over timidity, of the appetite for adventure over the life of ease." Now, I know part of what I have done by my decision to retire is invited myself into the unfamiliar. I've done this work for 25 years, and about 5 years before that, if you count warming up. That is familiar, that is known, that is comfortable. What I'm doing next doesn't feel familiar, but it does feel right. And so the heart and the intuition that speaks to me is calling me forward. I also know that I have invited you into the realm of unfamiliarity. You're welcome. I've invited you to be uncomfortable and disquieted and all kinds of good things because you know I've said it a million times. The role of the minister is to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable. So I hope I've done both. But you see, what I know is even as we are not a perfect center for spiritual living now, and we weren't before, we probably won't ever be the ideal, we hold an ideal that we're working for, we're working toward. A space where people get to know the truth of who they are, where they get to live from a higher spiritual reality, where they get to call forth the best that is within them, where we celebrate the fullness of living. This is not a place that says you're a worm of the earth. That's what I grew up with. No wonder I turned up so messed up, right? But says you are a divine emanation of the one living spirit with a unique, special gift to bring forward in the world. I think that's fabulous. And I have been incredibly honored to get to serve for 6.5 years here. And I know that the next person that comes in gets to take us to the next level as the person after that. In fact, there's a lovely lady right here. We just chatted for a moment. She said, "I go to the Center for Spiritual Living in Dallas. Do you know that center?" And I said, "Yeah, that's where I started my ministry 25 years ago. They're doing okay without me." Yeah. In fact, they're doing a lot better with that. Oh, well, anyways. I'm going to have to look at that. Everywhere I leave seems to grow and prosper. So, friends, we live in an amazing time. And I know there's darkness in the world. I know there's crazy stuff going on. And I know that if you spend too much time watching the TV, we can lose sight of what's really going on. But what I believe is there is a transformation. And we stand as light in this nation for the rest of the world. And that we need to commit to continuing to live to the values that this country was established on, that we need to commit to living to the principles that we say we believe, that Spirit is alive and well in me, and I live fully. We need to commit to our highest vision. We need to join the greats like Martin Luther King and like Nelson Mandela. We don't have to do great work. Sometimes courage is waking up in the morning and go, "Yeah, I can do this one more day. I will give my best today." That's enough. But we are living in an amazing time, and I believe that the opportunity for all of us is to be more awake, to be more conscious, to be more loving, to be more giving, to be more compassionate, to bring forward the ideals that the masters have taught, no matter what the circumstance. And so I want to thank you for blessing me on this journey and let you know that I bless you on yours. Let us pray together. as we take this moment, as we turn inward, as we honor and acknowledge this one life ever present and always available, and we remember that it is in this one presence, this one life, that we live, move, and have our very being. It is the presence of love and joy and harmony and peace and joy and wholeness. This is our divine inheritance. And so we are awakening to that truth and that reality as we remember right here and right now that we are spiritual beings unfolding uniquely. So we recognize our spiritual gifts. We know we live in the presence of unconditional love. And so we choose love. We choose to freely forgive, to release that which no longer serves us, to open our hearts to compassion, to love, to understanding, to joy. As we call forth this truth, we know we are released to experience our greater selves. Our relationships are healed and transformed. We know that we are divine wholeness, and that wholeness is revealing itself as health, as well-being, as vitality. We know that we are spiritually free right here and right now, so we consciously choose to express that freedom, the freedom of thought, to be fully who we are. We know that we are abundant beings, for we are one with the source and the substance of all good, that we are co-creative beings bringing forth new realities, greater good. And so as I speak this word of truth, I simply give thanks for all of the blessings in our lives. I know that we are blessed and that we extend this blessing. We bless this spiritual community which is divinely unfolding. We bless this nation that it might live according to its ideals. We extend that blessing to our brothers and sisters around the planet, for we recognize the inherent brotherhood and sisterhood of all humanity. We bless the planet herself. We see a planet at peace and in harmony with itself. And as always, we take a moment to bless all priests, rabbis, ministers, imams, teachers of every faith. For we know there are many pathways to the divine. We honor and celebrate them all. So we enjoy, and with profound gratitude, I'm just giving thanks for this inner realization. I'm giving thanks for its perfect demonstration, for I know the law of mind operates upon the word established, bringing forth the highest good for all concerned, in perfect timing and in divine right order. And so in joy and gratitude, I simply allow it to be so, as together we say, and so it is.